I don't know if I'm just a really nosy person, but I love watching videos and listening to podcasts where people talk about money and the transparency of these kind of income wrap-ups for the year. So I wanted to record one for 2022. I almost said 2023 there. It's so common these days to almost brag about income milestones, cash months on social media, but it's not very often that people actually talk about expenses, profit margins, and also the specific streams of revenue and what actually is shifting the needle, what's actually contributing the most to those illustrious 10K, 20K months. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. So buckle up, get ready, we're talking numbers. As a quick disclaimer, by the way, guys, I'm not an accountant and I'm also terrible at counting in general. My math might be slightly off in this video, so please be kind. And I hope you guys will still soak up some inspiration and motivation and sort of insider info anyway, regardless of my terrible counting. So I'm actually only looking at my income and expenses from January through to the end of November. My December income is going to be a little bit messy anyway because I have some clients paying me in full for the following year. So I have to do some fiddling around there to get my actual income for that month. And obviously I'm having a little bit of a break over Christmas, so I wanted to get this recorded for you. So at the moment, I am sitting at just over 200,000 New Zealand dollars in terms of revenue for my social media management agency and course creation business for 2022, which is so exciting because that was my goal. That is what I have written on my vision board. I wrote myself a little check at the beginning of the year and wrote $200,000 on it. I was like, that is the goal. So I'm really, really proud that I have hit that. Also, as a quick disclaimer, I am from New Zealand. I do all of my accounting in New Zealand dollars. So when I'm talking about currency, in this video, I'm most likely referring to NZD. Before we dive into revenue streams and what sort of percentages made up that income, I want to talk about expenses first, because as I said in the beginning, this is often overlooked when a lot of people talk about their income. And my expenses for 2022 actually increased by 44% compared to the year before 2021. But I also firmly believe in reinvesting back into your business and the old saying of you have to spend money to make money. So overall, my operating expenses currently are sitting at $78,000 New Zealand. Now, this is probably going to change when I sort of do my accounting in December. It also is missing a few things off there in terms of like paying myself, in terms of investments and savings that I take out of my business. In general, when I'm talking about expenses, I mean software subscriptions, paying for online courses and upskilling and education to further my career. It's also advertising fees, so everything I've spent on Facebook ads, anything like that, as well as like website fees. I also put that under my advertising category. So it's important to remember when you're running an online business, yes, we do have quite high profit margins when compared to a brick and mortar store. I don't have to pay for rent. I actually get to expense a little bit of my home rent. That's also part of my operating expenses. But I don't have, a cafe that I have to pay rent on and then hire all of these staff for every single day of the week. And I don't have a shop where I'm selling physical products and I have to buy wholesale products. It's pretty streamlined, but this is evidence that all of those, little pieces of software that you buy to sell courses and run courses effectively online, they do add up. I also have things like new camera gear if I purchase that, or new tech. That can get quite pricey. I did buy myself a new iMac computer, which I filmed a little video on if you want to check out that unboxing. If you are new to business or you're wanting to start your own business in 2023, it is so important to track your cash flow like this. I actually didn't know my expenses were that high for this year. And it's important to be aware of these things because the number one thing that results in businesses shutting down is cash flow. People who can't keep track of their cash flow, who are spending more money than they're making, this is where you go into a danger zone and your business risks not surviving. So really important before we dive into all the exciting things of like how many courses I sold and what percentage, what's the most popular course, it's important to address these expenses. So taking away my operating expenses, my total profit for the year was 122,000 New Zealand dollars, which is increased by 104% compared to the year before. So this is exactly what I mean in terms of you've got to spend money to make money. And I think all of those operating expenses and, up levels in my business certainly paid off in terms of increasing my profit. If you're curious, this also works out to be a 60% profit margin on average for my business for the year. Now, for those of you who might not be too familiar with my business, I basically have two halves or two sort of, streams of main revenue. One is working with my social media management clients under my agency, Dishing Up Digital. This is one-to-one, mostly Instagram management services and some content creation depending on the client's needs. And primarily this was my bread and butter for the past 3 years of running my business full time. It was always the dominant source of income. But I did make it my goal in 2022 that I wanted to change this, and I really wanted to scale the other half of my business, which is selling online courses, doing teaching, and basically growing my Ellen McKenzie brand. That sounds so cheesy to say, I'm sorry. And I'm super pleased that I did accomplish this goal. And for 2022, I made $130,000 approximately from courses, digital products, and coaching. And then $70,000, I think, no, $80,000? 70. I did count that right. Well done, Alan. $70,000 came from one-to-one social media management services. So still an amazing amount of revenue coming from my one-to-one client work, but I successfully scaled those online courses, which is a huge win for me. Percentage-wise, that works out to be 64% of my income now comes from online courses and digital products. Now, as an online creator myself, whenever I hear someone talk about their online courses and digital products, I always want to know what is the most profitable. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you in the sort of last part of today's video or episode if you're listening to this on the Dishing Up Digital podcast. I'm going to list off everything that I've sort of got in terms of like my product suite. So I do have one ebook which I wrote 2 years ago on Amazon, and I'm just going to tell you straight up, I made no money off that this year. That's because you have to hit a certain income level to get a payout from Amazon, and I really haven't been promoting that book. It's just a little ebook mini guide kind of thing, and honestly it's a little bit outdated, and I have been writing a new book, so hopefully that will be a good revenue stream for me in 2023, but not so much in 2022. The other things I have on my list here are templates, my Facebook membership, which is like a monthly fee people can pay. I also have one-off masterclasses and workshops. Then I have my course GramCam, which is Instagram Reels and photography. Then we have Get the Gram, which is a more comprehensive look at Instagram marketing as a whole. It's a really awesome course. I've really added videos to it throughout the last year and a half that I have been, selling it. And it really dives deep into actually how to sell on social and how to structure your Instagram page for success, how to do launches, all of that good stuff. So that is kind of like my second tier course in terms of price and also number of students coming through that program. Then I also have the Scale on Social Mastermind. This is where students can come through and take all of my courses, but they also get the added support of group coaching calls and private coaching calls. I introduced this in June, I want to say, this year, and I have just run a promotion enrolling people for the new round, the new 6-month cohort starting in January. So that's awesome. And then finally, we have the Dishing Up Digital School. This is my core program, my most popular program, and this is directed towards people who want to learn how to become a social media manager like me. So those are all of the things that make up that 130,000 New Zealand dollars that I mentioned earlier. The way that I've listed them out is actually in order of how profitable they are from lowest to highest. So starting with like the templates and the masterclasses and the membership, these are kind of smaller digital products. That's why I group all of them together. They can range anywhere between $9 through to $49 or $50. Overall, this makes up 6 to 7% of my income. I think it's really important to analyze these specific products in your business because sometimes you might sell 300 templates. Okay, that's a bit much. Maybe 50 templates, and you're like, wow, I've just sold this product 50 times. This is amazing. But if you're selling something at a low cost, selling it 50 times may not actually contribute a huge amount of money to your business. This is why, as I've been building my business, I've focused more on high ticket courses because I see better results there in terms of me as like a small business owner. Those are the things that can really shift the needle. So my template bundle, for example, I only introduced this late this year. I think it was only, I want to say November. So it's actually only 1 month of sales. So maybe this will grow for me in 2023. But I think the key with smaller digital products with memberships is you really have to have the audience and the number of people coming through to these offers to support it and make it sustainable. I have a very awesome community here on YouTube, on my podcast, on Instagram, but I don't have hundreds of thousands of followers. And if you want to be making a decent chunk of change with a low-end offer like this, you need that mass of sales to add up. The next group, which adds up to just over 8.5%, are my other 2 courses that I listed, GramCam and Get the Gram. Like I said, these are not my most popular courses, and I'm also not actively selling them all the time. I tend to steer people towards the Dishing Up Digital School, so it is understandable to me that that is a smaller percentage. But looking at the 8.5%, I definitely think I can do better. I knew it was going to be low percentage, but I really want to push that across to 10 or 15% of my revenue when it comes to course sales. This is why doing income reflections like this is so important, because it might point out holes in your business and give you clear goals for the new year. The next thing I have on here is the mastermind that I mentioned, and this makes up 15% of my course sales. So you can see how all of these little percentages are actually starting to add up. And this is why I teach my students that it's really important to have that robust offer suite and make sure you have those different price points and different levels of offers in your business. So although I was kind of talking negatively about digital products earlier, I still think they're contributing to that overall like growth in my business and that income. I'm not going to say no to, that couple of $1,000s that it generates in my business. I'll happily take that, especially with things like the digital products. It is something that you can kind of set and forget. You can make it once and it doesn't require too much maintenance. The mastermind, I'm hoping, will increase in terms of percentage of revenue for 2023 because I will be running it from January all the way through to December. So this time last year, I did not have a mastermind. It had not been created or invented. So yeah, that should be an interesting one to see how it grows. I've also increased the price of that, and I plan to increase the price again in the middle of the year for the next intake as well. And then finally, we have the sales from the Dishing Up Digital School. And as I mentioned earlier, this is my biggest, most popular program, so it's no surprise that this contributed to 44% of course sales and digital products. What also helps with this is that it is a high ticket course. It is expensive, it's a big investment, and that is because it is a massive course. You also get lifetime access to all of the 60 video lessons and any updates that I make. I'm constantly adding in new lessons. I'm updating old ones that have a bit of out-to-date strategy on them that need a bit of a refresh. You also get access to our Facebook group, and this is where I have live coaching calls, where I do live training sessions, which is a super valuable component to online courses. If you're just going to do an online course that's entirely self-study, sometimes it lacks like the motivation and also like a place to ask questions. If you're watching a self-study video and you don't quite get something, if there's no Facebook support or no live streams in addition to this, it can be really difficult as a student to work your way through, from my personal experience. I could make a whole other video talking all about how to create an online course and a successful online course that actually sells, but I'm not gonna open that can of worms right now, or else this is gonna turn into a very, very long YouTube video or podcast episode. For now, I'm just gonna leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this insight into my business and a little look at the finances. I do enjoy talking numbers like this. It does get me excited, and I hope you guys have taken away that same level of excitement and inspiration. And with that all out of the way, if you're on YouTube, make sure you are hitting that like button, you're subscribing for the next video. If you're listening in on the podcast, definitely make sure you're following on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you feel so kind, please do leave me a review. It really helps with getting my podcast seen by more people. And I'm going to leave this there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will catch you next time. Bye.